Ask the Podcast Coach for March 24th, 2018. Welcome aboard. This is where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm your host, Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy technically challenged morning as we try to get this thing up and running. It's one of those live things, right, where it just goes bad. And once it starts going bad, it goes really bad. So
yeah. I started this at 10 o'clock. And I thought, you know what? I haven't rebooted my computer in a while. And I think it was last week where my audio kept going out every now and then. And I was like, you know what? Let's do a reboot. And my options were to update and reboot or update and shut down. And I was like, oh, now in theory, I should have said cancel and just stuck where I was at. But I rebooted and updated, and nothing has worked since then, basically. So luckily, we're on my laptop. If you're wondering why I look like Max Headroom, I'm on the world's oldest laptop.
It's not actually that bad, Dave. It was worse when we first started, but it's kind of picked up. Different angle for most people, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, you get to see the hallway now. That's fun.
Ooh, so there you go. Bonus content.
Yeah. But luckily had a 2100 sitting here, and I'm like, all right, let's just because if I plugged in the mixer, now we're back to the same problem of my audio occasionally cutting out. I'm like, you know what? When in doubt, just go with the 2100 and you're good to go. So
while we talk a lot about equipment in the communities, good equipment is important, and it is one of those things, Dave, that like you're on a kind of a substandard laptop at this point, and it's working right, but it's not just working right or the way you want it to. And so I always, kind of my advice for podcasters is on hardware. If you're going to skimp on anything, don't skimp on your hardware, like really, especially on the PC side. Now Mac, they don't let you skimp, right? There's one, it's a 1984, right? There's one thing you can buy. It's, and that's not technically true, but you have to buy good equipment with Macs. They're just not going to let you buy crappy stuff. Windows, totally different world. And you can, you get into the Best Buy and you start like, well, I'm coming in for this $1,200 laptop, but wait a minute, there's this one for $900, but wait a minute, there's this one for $600. Ooh, I could get this, what we used to call netbooks for $400. And pretty soon you have a really crappy piece of equipment. So don't skimp on those things.
When I bought this, I'm like, look, I just need a laptop to check email and occasionally run a PowerPoint. I'll just take it with me on the road, and I don't really do much on the road. And so I got the next to the cheapest. And I have pretty much what's the word? Buyer's remorse. I've been remorseful since the minute I bought it. I was like, because the minute I took it on the road, I'm like, wait, I'm doing more than just checking email and running PowerPoint on it. I'm like, yeah, that was a bad idea. So, and now it's just one of those where you don't want to like just chuck it and buy a new one, because then I'm out I think I paid like $500 for this, maybe less, because the other ones were.
Move it downstream into a process that's not as important. You're not going to use it for where it's going to be critical. Mike Howard makes a good point in the chat room. He says for his two main PCs that does his live production, he says he does the reboot the day before the live show, never the day out. And I think that's actually probably good policy. Sometimes you think you can sneak it in. Like you're like, oh, I'll just reboot. This isn't going to take very long.
Right.
Boom. You're done. I should, while we're talking about this, I should make an update because we are getting close to the Windows 10, the next Windows 10 launch for the 18. Well, they're calling it 1803 today. So in April, we're going to see a brand new version of Windows 10. And I say that it's really just got some updates to it. It's not that big of a deal. For podcasters, I always kind of give you guys an update. It will come through probably in Patch Tuesday, which is the second Tuesday of the month. You just might want to be aware. It's always big. It's a big update. It's going to take over your PC for 20 minutes. That you might want to plan for. It won't do it automatically, or it shouldn't do it automatically. But you'll want to plan for. I haven't seen anything. I've been testing it. I haven't seen anything. There's 1.5 billion Windows users. So who knows about the way you've got it set up. I haven't seen anything that's going to change anything for podcasters. So if you want to take it on, it'll be available right away. I'm just not seeing, again, test. Don't do the install the day before you have a really important event. That might be something you want to give yourself a couple days in case you have to roll it back. Just helpful tech tip. You can roll it back. So if it rolls out and you're having problems, roll that sucker back. You have a good 30 days to roll it back before Windows is going to delete those the backup files that you need to get it back. So try it, test it. It's coming. Be ready for it. It'll be coming in April.
That'll be fun. Excellent. Hey, speaking of rolling things back, I guess that's a transition.
Oh, there you go.
What's the hashtag? Delete Facebook?
Oh yeah, the delete. I've been on this morning. I said, how many of you have deleted your Facebook account? Oh wait, sorry. So yeah, I think, Dave, the question is not whether you're deleting it or not, but how is it affecting your community? I have gotten a lot of feedback, and a lot of my customers for Gallup, we use Facebook kind of as, I'd say it's our primary social platform. We use it a lot for that. I've gotten a lot, especially the Europeans, kind of pinging me on like, hey, what are you going to do? Are we leaving? And so, I kind of had that question. Are you, as podcasters, are we hearing that from our communities? Because a lot of us have Facebook groups where we've gathered a lot of people there. And I'm wondering if they're going to start hearing like, hey, are you going to do something different? I want to leave Facebook, but I can't leave it because I have this. And that's a real problem.
Yeah, it's I guess the big question is, it's so weird because there's 8 bazillion people on Facebook, and then everybody is actually thinking about, I think I'm just going to ditch it. And I'll be interested to see how much of this is just a news story hype, and like actually how many people actually do leave. I think if I were to just guess, I've always thought the younger people would be the first to ditch it, because the minute your parents are on it, it's not cool anymore. So I'll be interested to see if this is actually just a news story, or if actually people are, if it actually gets some legs.
Yeah, well, the numbers for that demographic are already pretty low. When we think about, they're out there, they're stalking us, by the way. They say they don't have Facebook accounts, but the Facebook account numbers would say differently. They just stalk on Facebook. They don't want to be left out, so they are out there. They just don't participate. But their numbers are way, way down on Facebook. If you're doing podcasting for a very young audience, Facebook is probably not where you want to be, or a platform you necessarily want to use and draw people to. Every situation is different, so you have to measure that. But it will be interesting to see. I mean, the momentum is building against Facebook at this point, and it will be interesting to see. The drawback, Dave, is there is no other service today that can do what Facebook is doing. When MySpace was in, there were 17 other services that people could jump to. We all ended up jumping to Facebook when MySpace began to go away, or we all moved to Facebook, and that is why it went away. But there aren't a lot of because Facebook is so big, there's no one making services like this. I have seen a big movement, especially in the cryptocurrency communities, towards Telegraph and Discord servers, where they're setting up their own. They're kind of setting up their own communities that way, and self-hosting. So, I don't know. There are other self-hosting options. I just don't know if there's any turnkey, hey, let's just all go over here, because that's not LinkedIn for sure. That's not LinkedIn. You don't get that kind of interaction on Instagram. Not going to have, by the way, owned by Facebook, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So, you're like, it really is a different climate today than it was 10 years ago when we were trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah, I was, for those of you wondering why are we not going to David, that's actually me trying to join on my PC, and you can see that the camera's not working, although the camera's on. So this is another weird thing. My camera is being used by something, but who knows what. But I'll be interested to see, not to derail the Facebook talk. I cannot see the chat room. That's the one thing I'm glad I have the internet back up.
It's good to know that. I'll bring those questions in as we have them.
Yeah, because now Chrome is saying it's not responding on my PC, so I don't know what's going on over there.
You're having a bad technology morning, much like Facebook is having a bad technology weekend. Well,
I just saw like Zuckerberg got called to Congress for something.
Mm-hmm. It's a fiasco right now. And it is a big political, unfortunately, I think this has become a big political problem, not necessarily a social media problem. Everyone I've said, Stephen chimed in as well. He's in the chat room now, but he chimed in as well on something we were talking about. For people who really thought Facebook wasn't using their data, like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, seriously? Like, you're just now waking up. Okay, Rumpelstiltskin. Like, did you just wake up and realize? And so there's a little bit of the absurdity of that, right? And I think it just goes to show, don't be a sheeple, right? Yeah. Don't just follow the crowd. I mean, understand what's going on, know what's happening. If you have a Facebook group, that's certainly a whole lot different than using the social feed. And are we influenced by it? Yeah, but don't like, have a brain. Don't just follow everything that's going on. But in the current political climate here, especially here in the United States, it's just really, it's just out of hand. So I think there's very little. I mean, this has been done before, to be honest with you. I mean, there have been other presidential administrations that have used Facebook data this isn't a new thing that Trump did. He's just following what others have done in the past.
Well, I remember, I forget where I was at. It was some pod camp, and there was a guy there that was like a Facebook like guru. And he was saying, and this is nothing surprising, he goes, at the time, I want to say Schwarzenegger or somebody was campaigning for Trump. And he said, we could go in and look at people that follow Schwarzenegger and are within a 20-mile radius of this and that. And he goes, it's amazing how much, how you can just dig down if you really want to get to a certain type of people. He goes, because of all the stuff that people share on Facebook, he goes, we can really figure out exactly who we want to talk to. And he goes, and then he just, put stuff in front of them and see if they follow it or not. So
Steven says, I want my data safe. I'm going to go back to emailing everyone at their Gmail address from my Gmail address on my Android phone. Like, if you don't think Google knows everything about you and where you're at and what you're doing, I mean, your phone is a lot more of a data liability than Facebook or even your email. All those things are being tracked. So that's a good point. He also makes a point. He says, so they have a private Facebook group for Gonna Geek, for the Gonna Geek Network members. And over the last year or so, they've attempted to move, see if there's any interest in migrating to something like Slack or Discord. And it's never panned out because people have generally preferred Facebook. This week, one of our members is leaving Facebook. It will be interesting to see if it leads to that Slack/Discord movement actually happening. That's true. And if your group is small enough, Slack is great. Like, if I have 10,000 people in my group on Facebook. No, Slack's not going to work. There's not a flying. Yeah, so sorry, it was going to get inappropriate. So you have to kind of weigh that. But Stephen could be right in this case that this could be a catalyst to some. Will this be the thing that sinks it? No, not even close. There's so many people. Like, that whole conversation started because someone jumped in the group and said, hey, I'm seeing this delete hashtag thing on Facebook. What happened? And so you're like, okay, so I shouldn't say most. Some people have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. I know I'm still fighting things behind the scenes.
It's okay. It's okay.
I remember, I'm going to say 5 years ago, I said, don't put all your eggs in the Facebook basket. I said, because, I've seen bigger things fail, scale wise, and people are like, oh, there's no way. And I always throw out the story of mp3.com. There were musicians making a living on mp3.com, and they were stupid, and they would tell people, go to mp3.com/Dave Jackson or whatever, your address was. And then they got sued because all sorts of people like SoundCloud were putting illegal music on that. They got bought and sold and bought and sold and bought and sold. And I don't know what even is at mp3.com at this point. But the bad news is, when it got shut down for a while, all those people that said, go to mp3.com/my name, they had no email list. They had no website. They put everything. Why would I spend money on my own website? I'll just direct them to mp3.com. And I'm like, so everybody that's, putting all their bag, like they're building their house on Facebook. I'm like, no, Facebook is, I've always said, you have your own website, and then Facebook and all these other places are satellite offices. So if that shuts down, you're not losing your whole operation. So
Well, and I think there's some good advice of just for podcasters, and this is hard because if you built your community out there, and I just had somebody post this on my thread on Facebook, but you can delete the Facebook app and not delete Facebook. So like you can choose, if you're struggling with it, you can choose just delete it off your phone, right? For some people, there's an addictive tendency, and I'm probably one of them.
Oh yeah.
Right? Every 5 seconds, pulling that out to see if something, so what's changed, and just delete the app. I can't remember who it was, but they're kind of, they have done that and said, I think ironically they announced they were doing that on Facebook, but they, it's like, hey, I'm deleting the app. I'm just going to go clean for a couple of weeks and keep it off my phone. That doesn't mean I can't get to it on the web. I can't get to it through a browser, but it's much more difficult to get to on my phone. So I think that's a nice middle ground if you're struggling with it a little bit. Just delete the app off your phone.
Yeah, that's I forget what I was listening to, and they were talking about like phone addiction and the fact that people are just we're walking around with a little computer in our pocket right now. And they said the hardest part is and I'm guilty of this myself, we use it as our alarm clock. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing you do is you shut off your alarm and then you check email or whatever it is. So it's like, within the first minute, your head's back in the same old. And I'm like, ugh. So, and for me, I just found out this morning that I wanted to get up earlier. And so I stuck my phone across the room. You can go, hey, what's her name on the Apple phone and have her stop your alarm. That's a really bad feature because.
Why did you tell me that?
Yeah. Yeah. So because she comes up, she hears you, and that's enough to get the alarm to quit. And then she's just kind of sitting there waiting for you to say something. And then you don't. Eventually, she just goes doink, it goes away. But the bottom line is your alarm is shut off. And I'm like, that's not good. That could be a bad problem.
Yeah. Well, convenience is always, always, always the opposite of security. And so the more convenient it is, the less secure it's going to be in many cases. And so it's just, it's something I think this is a good conversation to just grapple with in your own mind and come to your own conclusion on what are you comfortable with? And, I always said, when the NSA was listening to every single phone call that we were making in America, I always said, well, then, don't make phone calls that are, don't do the wrong things. And I get to invasion of privacy and all that other stuff that's going on. But it's, you kind of got to know what you're doing in that case. And it's like nothing you put online, you have to know they're going to market to you. That's how they make money. And so just be smarter than that and don't fall into the trap that they put there. But it is one big, gigantic marketing, right? What's YouTube's business? What's Google's business? It's search marketing, right? That's really, at the end of the day, that's what they make money on. So yeah, buyer beware. Just be careful.
It'll be fun to watch. I know I now have the chat room. I have it going on my laptop.
Good.
So I see where Kim said something like, if you're not where did she put it? If you're not the customer, you're the product.
Totally. Yeah, totally. She also told you to buy an alarm clock. The one I want is the one that's on Groundhog Day, where the things.
I remember those. Yeah,
a little radio on there. You can listen to KGOR and wake up in the morning. Steve Sleep will appreciate that
one. So that'll be fun to see how that pans out. I know Emily had mentioned another platform that I never heard of. Mastodon is seeing a spike in signups because of the Facebook backlash. So there's been a few of those. I forget the one. I thought it had gone away, and I got an email the other day where it's like, we miss you at blah, blah, blah. I can't remember the name of the platform, but it was supposed to be like the Facebook killer because it was like Facebook 5 years ago, like without all the bells and whistles. It was just, social interaction. And I'm like, I think think about it. There comes a point where things get so big, like my Twitter. The reason I don't use Twitter as much is when I go there, it's just a fire hose of trying to see what's going on with people. So then you have to make lists of people that you really want to check so that it's not on your screen for a half a second, or you then have to go to everybody's Twitter to see what they're up to. And that's kind of, I think, what most people are doing with Facebook, which is you create a group of people that you really want to interact with. And then because a lot of times it just seems like when I go to Facebook, somebody's going to ask a question like, Who wants more money? Leave a gift below. Okay. And then you go to the next person and it's like, I don't know. It just seems like it's a lot of just let's put a post here that everybody can comment on that really doesn't affect anything. Not that I expect people to, solve world peace on Facebook, but it's just like scrolling. Is there anybody here I really care about? Maybe not. Wait, oh, okay, and then you'll finally see one person. You're like, oh, that's cool. And there's Clay Groves from Fish Nerds, and Clay does this thing. He takes a blue dino, like a dino from Flintstones.
Mm-hmm.
It's about this big, and when he can't take his kids, he takes this and he takes pictures like Dino's on vacation. It was hilarious. So that was cool. But
there's some good stuff out there. I mean, I really appreciate keeping up with my friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scroll through it and see what's going on. For some folks, it's gotten really political. We find great value in our group. I mean, I have 7 of them, probably 7 different ones at Gallup, and one of them's really, really active. One of them's secret and private, just for certified coaches. And I find great amount of value in being able to communicate with everyone around the world all the time and in all these certain circumstances. You're not out of the woods if you create your own thing. So say like, oh, I'll set up my own Discord server. Well, now you got to think about GDPR, and you got to start thinking like, okay, am I going to be compliant with the European Union and their data compliances? Now that I own this box and I own the software technically, and I'm drawing people to it, if there's going to be data in it, if we're going to keep people's names in it, do I have the right legal disclosures on the front end? You have to start thinking about those things now. In my setting, I would be doing it as a professional, right? I'd be doing it for or on behalf of Gallup. Just not as easy as just, we'll just set up a Discord server. It's open source software. We could just do it. Well, no, you can't just do it, right?
Yeah.
You have to. There's a lot of legal ramifications you got to think through. GDPR, I don't know if you're familiar with that, Dave.
I was just going to ask you, I'm like, was that a band back in the 90s? Like
it was. Yeah, I think they did a song called America or something. So GDPR is some regulations that's come down in the European Union to really protect data. It really, in an essence, it's really complicated. But to make it simple, is data that's generated in Europe needs to stay in Europe for the most part. And you have to do a lot of things. Remember the right to be forgotten and some of those. I don't know if you've heard about some of those things. So when it comes to data compliance, where data rests, what can be done with it? Can it be sold? Can it be used? All that stuff. The European Union just got sick of talking about this, so they just created their own law. It goes into effect May 25th, I believe. And if you're doing business with anybody in Europe, you're going to have to comply to their GDPR, rules. And so for podcasters, does that really matter? I think in most cases, no. For 99% of the podcasters, if you're making a living and you're collecting customers' data and you're doing some of that stuff like that, you should probably get a quick primer on GDPR so you know what you're doing.
Yeah, because I know Libsyn is making sure we're whatever that is GDPR compliant and blah blah blah. It's one of those things where it's like I probably should look at that.
Yeah, if you have customers in Europe, that customer information needs to stay in Europe. Like so, and you have to be able to show, certain things about it. I mean, it's pretty serious, and it's one of those things that really kind of ruins it for entrepreneurs, because the average entrepreneur just does not have that kind of bandwidth or that kind of legal counsel to be able to go through all their systems, and they're shoestringing everything. So, you're not necessarily, hey, well, I'll get an AWS instance in Virginia and I'll set this up. And now I start attracting customers from Europe. Ooh, what do I have to do there? How do I split those? Amazon isn't going to necessarily do it for free. Like you're going to have to set up another AWS instance in Europe. You're going to have to split it. Are those things going to so for the average small business person or entrepreneur, man, it's completely unreasonable to think that they can actually handle any of that stuff. So if you are doing work overseas, and when I say overseas, I really mean Europe, you better get a handle on GDPR if you haven't already.
Yeah, should be again another one that's going to be fun to watch. Yeah,
it's going to be May 25th is the cutoff date. It will be interesting to see. It's such a big problem. It'll be interesting to see how they could even enforce that. And certainly, they're not. Well, I shouldn't say this. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. This does not represent any kind of legal. But the European Union generally goes after the big players on this. They're not a onesie twosie. that's not been the experience in the past. So I take it with a grain of salt, but it does make it more complicated. You just have to think about that. Well, I'll just do something on my own. I mean, to take this all the way back to the delete Facebook comment, Facebook is a super convenient community because it just works and everybody's on it for the most part, right? And that's the convenience security.
Yeah. I know Steven's in the chat room. He had podcast forum, I want to guess. He had a forum that was not Facebook. And I had tried that in the past, and then the minute I made a Facebook group, it was like instant interaction. And I have not been over. I forget what the website is that he has, but it was a non-Facebook forum, and I popped over a couple times. But again, because I have to remember to go there, I have to remember my password, all that fun-filled stuff. I've always wondered how, because they mention every now and then on Better Podcasting that this was a discussion over in their forum, and I've always wondered. Is it still going? Is it dead? Is it, because I would think you'd have to really stoke the fire to get people to go over there. Although
forums are a lot of work. They are. Yeah. We have one home server show, old show from 10 years ago. The forums are still going. There's thousands of guys and gals that are out there posting on that, but it's curation. You have to have heavy moderation. It gets spammed all the time. You got to have your own servers. You're paying for instances, VPSs and such. So that's a lot of work. Having your own thing, having that infrastructure is a lot of work.
Yeah, I know Mike Russell from Music Radio Creative. He has some sort of forum thing that actually looks really cool. And what he does is, I think it's once a week, he'll send an email out to everybody that says, here's what's being discussed at the forum. Click here to join the conversation about this. Click here to talk about that. And go that route. So, and speaking of talking to people, since I have it up, we do want to thank Greg from depthshepherd.com, Jonathan from weeklyawesome.com, the one and only Glenn the Geek Hebert from horseradionetwork.com, Joshua Rivers from podcastingexperiments.com, Mass Trescott from aviationnewstalk.com, and Shane from spybrary.com for being awesome supporters. If you'd like to be an awesome supporter and keep the lights on here at Ask the Podcast Coach, go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and join. And for anyone keeping up with the story today, my taskbar does not work. Like when I click on the start button in Windows, which is weird because I was able to launch Chrome, but I wanted to start the calculator, and I have a calculator button on my taskbar, and it's a no-go because I was going to talk about I was going to ask the question, what do you think things are? Well, I can't even get to the taskbar.
So here's what you need to do. When we're done with the show, shut everything off, go to Waffle House, get some lunch, come drink a whole bunch of coffee, then because their coffee's really good. Yeah. Then and the waffles are good too. Then come back and restart everything, because you've got a ghost in the machine, right? You just got one of those things that no matter what you're doing, and or as soon as we end the call, the taskbar will appear. Yeah. Mike says in the chat room, a bigger issue for us is making the website ADA compliant. When we think about our own sites, right, we have to think about ADA compliancy in that. And ADA is not, to be honest with it, this doesn't get discovered and handled like the European Union. They will hammer on small sites to say, because people will try to go out and visit your site who have disabilities and they can't, and it makes them super mad.
Yeah.
And can't you think of me as an example? And I am not compliant on this, and I should, but the alt text behind every single picture should have a description of what the picture is. By the way, great SEO for alt text. So there's an incentive to do it, right? But all alt text needs to have a description, because that's what the screen reader reads when you hover over a picture. So make sure you're filling in your alt text that's there. Mike also follows up and said we had forums. He pushed it for a long time, but nobody wanted to leave Facebook to use it, so it's pretty much dead. I think that's a real common for people who tried forums. They are a ton of work to get people, because it's another login. When we moved from Yammer to Facebook in our Gallup group, about half the group was like, thank God, I don't have to remember my Yammer login anymore. So they were super happy. The other half were like, I loved Yammer so much, I didn't want to leave. So you're never going to make anybody or everybody happy.
Yeah. Kim says, what do you need to do besides alt text?
Colors are important. So the colors and the colors that you use for colorblind people. And there's a whole, and I do not pretend to be a specialist or an expert on this. I just know I work with our design team and we're talking about these things all the time. You should also think about everything is hoverable. And so what you might want to do is turn on, this is an exercise that's embarrassing. I'll be honest with you. If you're in Windows, go in and turn on the accessibility options. In other words, the screen reader, where it's going to read it to you, and start moving your mouse over all the spots on your website. Just move the mouse over. It's incredible how unhelpful that is for a lot of sites.
Yeah.
And then start figuring out, okay, how do I make that more accessible? How do I put the right words in there? If you are hovering, close your eyes, put a mask on, see if you can navigate your site without seeing it and only hearing it. That'd be a good test. I don't know, Dave, what else? What else have you heard?
In some cases, instead of making, sometimes we'll take general text and we'll manually make it bigger and then manually make it bold instead of using like header tags. Because I think header tags might be more ADA kind of compliant than just bold, bigger text. They might be treated differently than that. But I know the big one are pictures. People really, because when you hover your mouse over and it says, JKMJX27.jpg, it's like, that's not helpful.
Blank.
Yeah.
This is blank.
Yeah.
You're like,
and especially with links, any kind of links, you want to have alt text, because if you're trying to get them to buy something and they hover over your buy now button and there's nothing that lets them know it's, they hover over it and they see that it's JKM PNG, whereas if it, that's another thing, name your buy now button buy now.jpg. Because that way, if the event you forget to put the alt text, give them a clue.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah. So
Emily says in the chat room, don't forget SEO bots read dashes as spaces. So instead of coolpictures.jpg, all one word, because a screen reader wouldn't know how to read that. Use cool-pictures.jpg. So that's a good one. And then Mike Howard says ADA for websites is complex, and it is. This is another one you probably need a lawyer for. Yeah. I would stay away from PDFs, but the real issue may be videos. To be ADA compliant, the video needs a transcript and maybe more, and that is true. And there's a lot of pushback in the ADA community on using Google's translator as a standard. You're like, oh well, it's translated with Google Translate. Well, that's actually still not good enough yet. And so there's some real pushback. I get this question at Gallup all the time, and we don't transcribe our videos. And
yeah, me neither. I think about it, I'm like, huh?
Yeah. Kim says she never thought about the buttons. Yeah, it's a whole, to be honest. Like, we are so used to creating sites, and we just create and create and create, and we do about 5% of the creation process, which gets it there. But we forget about the 95% underlying SEO and ADA and color palettes and those kinds of things. We forget that if we really want to drive the world to it, it's going to need a little bit more work than that. And so we need to create less and make it better rather than creating more and have it not being compliant. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that you just don't think about because you're not in that boat. And then when, so you need to go find somebody that, go find a blind friend. I'm trying to figure out a politically correct way to say that, but to go, hey, can you go my site? But that's like you said, turn on the screen reader.
Turn off your monitor. Like,
there you go.
Just turn off your monitor and try and navigate without the screen being on and only hearing it. I mean, if you want a real good whole, come to Jesus moment on how good it is to see.
Oh man.
It's brutal. We've all had that where we've been trying to troubleshoot something and the screen goes blank and it's hidden behind something and you're trying to do all these key combinations and you can't find stuff. Imagine your whole life being that way. So and listen, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I am the worst at this. If you go to Home Gadget Geeks, I can only imagine. I'm sorry. If you go to the Average Guy at TV, you can only imagine how awful it is. But it's a good reminder. Like, we got to think more about these things.
I have a question. If we were to assemble a list of things that podcasters do that are a waste of time. Because here's one that I just did the math on. I finally put up a calculator, and in here, well, it's 0.0005, so 3 zeros and a 5, 4. And in this case, that represented, I had somebody who was freaking out over iHeartRadio. Because as you might imagine, they're a little busy over there doing the whole, going bankrupt and all. And they've always been slow. I remember when they first came on board and you could submit your show, they're like, oh yeah, probably 2 weeks. And in my travels, it's always been 10 to 12, like literally 3 months to get added over there. So they've always been super slow. And somebody had uploaded a file. And this is something that we all need to think about. This is something I do religiously now, because every time I don't, it bites me in the butt. Listen to your file before you upload it. Because now Google Play Music, Spotify, and I think I'd have to think about that. I think iHeart is a pass-through. But there are more and more services coming on that make a copy of your file. And so when you go, oh man, there's 10 seconds of blank in the middle, getting the world to update that is not as easy as it used to be. And so in this case, I had understandably, this person didn't want this thing on iHeart. And what was weird is you couldn't play it because he'd removed it. So it was just the category. It was the episode number, and you'd click on it and it would go right to the next episode because there was nothing there. So they needed to like refresh or something like that. And I politely pointed out that this is, that is actually 0.05% of your downloads are coming from iHeart. So it wasn't that it wasn't a problem. It was like, there are 99.95 other people, you know what I mean? It was like, this is this much of your same thing with, if you look at your storage, and you've got 50 megs of space and you're worried about a file, an image file that's 166 kilobytes, do the math on that. That is like 0.005% of your storage is an image. And you're like, can I get rid of those because they're taking up room? No. The problem is you're exporting your files at 192 kilobits per second stereo. And that's way, way, way overkill. But I was just thinking about that. Because I heard somebody say we need an article, and I was like, well, I might do that, of things that people do that they shouldn't in podcasting. And I thought, well, review swaps would be like probably something I think that's a waste of time.
Well, is it? I mean, if it's done right, and I don't mean right in the sense of morality, but right in the sense of execution, they actually can provide some results. I mean, they're not right ethically, but
right. Well, that was my whole question, is if that doesn't drive you up the charts, then what's the point? I guess it's social proof.
Yeah, and I there are times when if you're looking for, again, the percentages are probably pretty small on this, but if someone lands, if they find you in Google and a search and they click on your iTunes thing and you go over there and it's a bunch of rating and reviews, what do we do on Amazon when we're on the fence about buying something?
We look at reviews. Yeah, that's true. But I also see, even now I know that there are fake reviews on Amazon, even though they track them down. But I do look for, I'm in the process of cutting my cable, which I'll be actually talking about, I think, this week on the School of Podcasting, because I don't want to give it away. But anyway, and I went down to the $20 a month plan and saw that really they give me almost nothing. Like, I don't have a DVR anymore. They just want you, they have you one way or another. So it was a matter of asking, do I really need this? Do I really need that? So I bought a, whatever you would call it, an HD antenna. And the first one I bought, I got from Walmart, and it was supposed to pick up in 360, and they're all the same thing. This is what I've owned two now, and they're all the same thing. It needs to be near a window, and it needs to be somewhere up high. Because the minute I was getting I couldn't get NBC.
Hey, hold on before you keep going. Your audio just went to crap for me.
Okay.
So do me a favor, mute and unmute. Let's see if we can get you back. It started to say something for me.
And now I'm back.
Yeah, it's that really choppy kind of.
Can I leave and come back to my own hangout?
I don't think you can, because you're on the recording end of it for sure. Try changing the audio here. We'll do a little online, because this is riveting podcasting. Right. Try changing your audio settings to send it to the Send it to the built-in microphone first, and then bring it back, and let's see if that. We'll see how that can fix it. Yeah, you say this all the time. You sound a little bit like a Cylon. So Michael Dell said, okay, so now we're hearing you through the speaker on the microphone. Now,
that's got to sound awesome.
Oh, it's incredible quality. So, but it's better. No Cylon. Now flip it back to your microphone.
And
good, we're back. Awesome.
I also adjusted my bandwidth, which is why I'm now weird looking, even more weird.
It changes the video resolution, and so you're there you go. Nobody's watching us for our faces.
So anyway, I went to Walmart, bought this thing, and whatever like HD antenna that you buy, it needs to be up and it needs to be near a window. So instead of spending $50 at Walmart, which I'm taking it back today because I couldn't get channel 3 unless I literally held it up about 15 feet, and I'm like, that's great, except I don't have any shelves that I could put this on. It's just like, this is not going to work. So I'm going to take that back to Walmart. It was $50. And then I found another one on Amazon that will show up today for $25 that I'm pretty sure is going to be the same exact situation, but it's $25 cheaper. And I think I can actually like stick it to the wall. It's meant to be stuck on a wall. I'm like, all right, that'll work. But, and I forget why I was talking about that.
Cutting the cable.
So just the fact that, no, I almost had it. And then, because I know we were talking about things that podcasters do.
Yeah, or they shouldn't do that aren't very valuable. So was it cable waste of time?
Maybe, maybe that's it. So it was just a case of I was paying for a lot of stuff that was a waste of time.
Right.
And it was like, because what I ended up doing was my cable went from like, I don't know, probably over $100 for just the cable part, because I was getting Showtime and HBO. That's what woke me up. I had free Showtime and HBO for a year, and then my year was up, and I opened up my cable and I was like, "Whoa, what happened here?" And so, so in the process of doing that, it really had to think like, do I watch that much TV? And the thing that's hilarious is I bought a brand new giant 55-inch TV on Black Friday, and I watch it while I eat my lunch. That's it. And maybe a little breakfast, but the rest of the time I'm in my office or out and about. And so, so that's a waste of time for me to be paying for that. So,
well, your cable bill too. I mean, think about, there's people skimping that are, they're trying to save money between a $15 and a $20 plan at Lipson. Like, so it's $5, but they're paying $179 for their cable.
Right. Well,
come on, guys. What's important to you. And if cable's important, then continue to spend $179 on it. But
even if you look at a $15 plan, it's 50 cents a day.
Yeah.
It's like, and yet they're pounding Starbucks and Mountain Dew and who knows what else, or they're still getting a newspaper that sits on the kitchen table and never gets read.
We just get the weekends, and we used to get it because of the coupons. And just so I got the bill, excuse me, I got the bill from them this week. Prices are going up $22 for 3 newspapers on the weekend. Right. And
wow.
Yeah. That, and I was like, I think we're done. Like, and I need to call them and cancel, but it was one of those things like, and I love the paper. Like, the paper is one of my favorite things. I love to sit down with a cup of coffee and just go through the paper. It's super relaxing and it's a ton of fun. But you know what? I can go to Starbucks and buy the paper there. I'll spend a lot less. I'll get coffee, really good coffee. So, you're like, but Dave, I think sometimes, or we do crazy things, we spend $5 to save a nickel. And you're like, I think it's really, really important. Look at those processes, audit them, take a look at all the things you're spending money on or things you're not spending money on. And if you did, would make your life a whole lot better. I think Buffer is a good example. They're changing all their plans at Buffer right now. And they're trying to be profitable. That's what they're trying to do. And so they're changing their plans. And at first, I've had the free plan. It allows me to post 10 times in different places. It's got all that integration. And as I was thinking through this, I'm like, okay, they're taking some things away. Will that inconvenience me enough that I should just pay the $4.99 or $9.99 or whatever it is to get it done? I was using Adobe, the Cloud Creator edition, and I had Audition, right, that I bought for $10 a month. Well, that went to 12, and then it went to 17.
Right.
And I was like, Audacity is pretty good. I think I'd rather put my money in Auphonic instead of Audition. I can get it good enough in Audacity, and then I can drop it to Auphonic and let it do its magic. I pay $11 a month for Auphonic. That is a service, right? We talked about Timmy. Great service, by the way. You know, and it's like, sometimes, guys, if you're going to do transcripts, don't try and do them yourself. Like, get them as close as you can and spend a little money on it. But we'll cut those corners and be like, oh no, I don't want to spend $3.99 to do this. And you're like, just drop the cash, and it's so much more convenient. Only you can decide that, right? And so, you know, do some good accounting and say, what's it worth to me? But man, I'm super guilty of spending $5 to save a nickel.
Yeah. Yeah, I am famous for buying courses that I don't watch.
Yeah, you're a course hound. You buy a lot.
I go, and half the time I do that because I want to go through their onboarding process, but pretty much everybody's got that down. You know, you get the welcome email, you get the you know, it's like, okay, everybody's kind of doing that. There's nothing really to learn there. But I just saw where Malcolm Gladwell and now Herbie Hancock have things on Masterclass. Well, again, I think it was a Black Friday thing. I paid, I forget what it was. It wasn't a huge amount of money to have like a forever license to everything on Masterclass. Because I was like, well, that's because they said at the time, like Ron Howard was coming in, and I think Scorsese, like all these people on Story. I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm putting the money down, and I have not been back. I watched like 2 lessons on Christina Aguilera on singing, and I just wanted to hear her sing. I think she's got an awesome talent. And most of it was not about, it wasn't her singing. It was her talking about the music business and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, oh, shut up and sing, you know, but so far she hasn't, and I haven't been back. But when I saw Malcolm Gladwell on Storytelling, I'm like, I need to do that. And there's I think it was a joke a comedian said on, I forget what TV show I was watching, and he was talking about actual physical books. And he goes, I love buying a physical book because in my mind, I still think I have the time to actually read it. And
that's so true. I have 2 books sitting on my desk at work that I keep thinking, someday I'm going to read again. I'm going to read.
That's it. But
man, that one flew by today. We were a little late.
Well, I'm going to say we started 10 minutes late.
That's true.
But yeah, so if thank you to the chat room for being patient this morning. I can't wait to reboot, and we'll do a little post show here. But Jim, anything fun coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
Yeah, Mike and I continue to do a series where we're just doing news and reviews and product updates. By the way, it's what I say in my opening line. We're actually doing what we say, which is kind of interesting. And so it's just been a ton of fun to just kind of get back to the podcasting basics of just he and I and getting some information out. And we've been an interview podcast for so long that it's kind of nice. We've done 2 in a row, and I still love the interviews, but it's been nice to kind of get back to that news for tech.
I'm going to go to this week. I think this is what I'm going to do. It's kind of good because I have a lot of ideas. Like, I'm not short on ideas, but I've had so many people ask about this. I might actually do an episode and play clips of like, what does 64 mono sound like? What does 128 stereo sound like? What does this sound like? What does 31 mono sound like? And that's where you go, oh, that's bad, and kind of get into, and I it's kind of weird. I think there are people that don't understand when I say stereo, like, what does that mean? Because they've never heard anything mono. It sounds weird. So I might actually do kind of an audio 1-on-1 and what makes bad audio, how to avoid it, things like that. It's kind of and part of me goes, but most of the people that are listening that are podcasters already know that. And I'm like, yeah, but every now and then I got to do an episode for the people that need that info, because hopefully they'll then sign up for the School of Podcasting. So yeah. I think if that's not this week, it's going to be coming soon. I keep getting that question a lot, and just the whole, in some cases, I don't know that I would add this in, but I don't think people understand like the difference between a kilobyte and a megabyte. Like, we're talking computer 101 stuff, because they're running out of storage space. And it's like, well, you know, if you make one file and it's 192 kilobit stereo and it's 90 minutes, there goes your 50 megs out the window. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I think that's what's coming up. You can find Jim again over at theaverageguy.tv. Find me at schoolofpodcasting.com, and you can find us here every Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, unless, of course, there are major technical issues, at askthepodcastcoach.com/live. So thanks for the chat room for hanging around, and we'll see you again real soon with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. And now it's post show.
Did you hear it playing, or was it you were just faking it?
No, I'm just faking it. I'm just going to put it in later. No,
I like it that way.
I did find out that if you are holding an iPad, I finally was like, oh, I forgot this thing has a stand on it. This gets heavy after a while because I was holding it down kind of in my lap so I could see the chat room. And I can see that Greg has a question. Where can I find a Thunderbolt 3 male to 3.55 millimeter female adapter? That Jim stole my answer. Monoprice or Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh,
wait a minute. Radio Shack. Oh
yeah. So
I went into an auto parts store to get an audio aux cable or jack for my car. So I have a 2006 Honda Civic, and I plugged that thing in and out so many times. It actually broke the solder on the jack itself, so it no longer works. And you can buy a little $20 replacement for it. And when I went online to find it, I found it was at Advanced Auto Parts here in town. So I go into the store, and here's a good example of bad customer service. So I go into the store, and I say to the guy, hey, I saw on your website that I could buy this replacement aux port in my car. I have a 2006 Honda Civic. But I wonder, maybe that's something I checked on the internet. They break all the time. There's like a million videos on how to replace these things because they break. It was a bad part. They break all the time. He looked at me and he goes in a very condescending voice. He goes, well, it's too bad Radio Shack closed because that'd be a perfect place for that. And it was like, he was making the assumption I was trying to rig something, like I was trying, because at Radio Shack, you wouldn't get, you could buy replacement parts for diodes, and stuff like that. And I said, no. It says on your website that you guys carry this. Now, I understand you don't carry it. You may not carry it in the store, but I thought I would check. He did not once even try to find the part on, wouldn't you, Dave, if you were the guy, you'd be like, hey, let me order this for you. As a store guy, I would be like, I want to keep you coming back into my store because I know once I get you online, I'm going to lose you. So I would say, hey, okay, let's look it up. I'll order it and have it directly shipped to the store. And you can, guess what? Come back in and pick it up, or I can ship it to you, whatever's convenient. But the chance to get me back in the store, and I get the Radio Shack business, oh, well, it's too bad. And it was even condescending. It's too bad there isn't a Radio Shack nearby.
Yeah. What help is that? Yeah.
Yeah. I went to the Honda dealership same day, maybe next day, because they keep sending me emails that they need to replace my airbags. I had those replaced 2 years ago when the thing came out, but they keep calling me. They keep sending me emails. So I pop in, I come into the thing, and I open the door, and I start talking to the guy, and he literally shushes me in the middle of a sentence. Goes shush, like that. I said, hey, I've got, I said, hey, I've got, I got a 2006 Civic. And he goes, shh. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Was he on the phone or something?
No. His job, when you pull in the garage and there's all the computers and they help people. I think they're there to help people. I'm pretty sure that's what they're there to do. And that's their job, to talk to me, pretty sure, and get I'm pretty sure that's his job, is to talk to me, not shush me when I'm trying to tell him my problem. And I don't, there's better ways to do that, but it was literally, God, it was 2 in a row that day of wow, these are brick and mortar places.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, do you realize? So I came back home and I ordered, surprisingly, I was able to order that part for $20 from Walmart.com, and they're going to ship it here, and I'm going to replace it. But I will never go to Advance again. That's not true. But I will probably think twice about going to
You might pick a different location.
Yeah, because next door is whoever, O'Reilly's or AutoZone. We have 3 all on the same corner. O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Advance. You think I'm going to go to Advance this next time? No, I'm going to go to AutoZone next door, because the guy would have probably at least pretended he was knowing what he was doing on his computer. And hey, let me look that up for you. Actually, let me try to be helpful for you. Yeah. So it's just ridiculous sometimes. You're like, come on, people.
And people wonder why Toys R Us went out of business.
Totally.
I remember when I went into Toys R Us at Christmas, and I think in their defense, they're also a Babies R Us, and I think that's half the problem. They like try to expand to be, which makes sense. If you got people, if you have moms in there with kids and dads with kids, let's get them hooked. Let's get them used to our awesome pricing and customer services. When they have babies and charge them too much, strollers are like, I think I paid more for or less for my car than you do for a stroller now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, they have autonomous strollers. I think that's why they're so expensive, right?
Yeah.
LiDAR on the top, and it's it's feeding the kids for you.
Yeah, and so that's one of those where it's like, I'll be interested to see, like, are there, because there's Target, there's Walmart, but I'm trying to think of like Dick's Sporting Goods is when I think of like a department store that's big, that's still around. It's hard to think of, there aren't many chains around here. And when I go to the mall, it's filled with like mom and pop shops that are just bizarre. The one has like precious moments, like little figurines. And then behind the counter is like literally like 6 foot long samurai swords. And I'm like, what? Like, who's like, I would like this little trinket for my granddaughter, and I'll take the, I was like, what is okay? So, and then there's like Hot Topic and Spencer's Gifts, which every, of course, mall has. But I'll be interested to see. There was a great discussion. I was surprised on TV. I think it was CNN, and they were saying, is Facebook, Walmart, Amazon, and Google, which Google isn't really a product. But they were just saying, especially like Walmart and Amazon, if they were an actual physical location, would the government go in and break it up for being a monopoly? And I was like, that's an interesting question.
And I heard a rumor that why wouldn't Amazon now just buy all those Toys R Us stores and make them Amazon Prime?
That would be
self-shopping. Like, would that not be a slap in the face? Because I mean, we all know Amazon put Toys R Us under, right? Well, and they didn't help themselves. They had terrible customer service. And
they didn't. It's you would think with so many stores they would have had like better pricing, because to me it was like you go in there, find out what toy you want, and then go online and buy it cheaper.
Yeah.
So
well, and just being online doesn't make it mean you're great either. I had an experience recently with we have United Healthcare for my health insurance, and they have a place where you can get your prescription meds just online. It's supposed to be super convenient. It is horrible. I mean, it's basically a government website. So I went in there. So I called them like to say, hey, it's not taking my card. Well, so the guy's like, something must be wrong with your card. Nope. Actually, the credit union is right here in the building. I just popped over there. It doesn't work. Well, it has to be the card. It can't be us. And
wow.
I'm like, so just because you're online doesn't mean you give great service either. On the other hand, I bought something from Amazon that came broken. Like, it was a refurb unit, and it was broke out of the box. Guy says, box it up, send it back. Here's your label. We'll credit you as soon as it hits the UPS store. And I thought, wow.
Now we're talking.
Okay. Like, I mean, literally it was the easiest thing. And sure enough, Tuesday morning, I dropped the box off at the UPS store. I got a text 10 minutes later saying your card's been refunded. We got as soon as they check it in at the UPS store, we got it. And so I think when we think about giving service to our listeners and those kinds of things, when they email us, you should email them back. Like, when they ask for things, you should work for it. I work really hard at Gallup to make sure like nobody's Facebook message goes unanswered for more than like 6 or 7 hours. It's a little tough when I go to bed at midnight and wake up at 6, but that's the kind of service we're trying to provide. And it's not always what they want to hear, but at least there's a human getting back to them, right?
That's it. Yeah. You mentioned that on your show this week, you're kind of getting back to the basics. I was amazed. It's coming out Monday. We did a podcast review show of this show called A Modeler's Life. And it's all about, it's not model trains, it's model railroads. I think, or mail road. There's like it's a weird termage thing, and I'm listening to it, and this guy is like taking tangent after tangent, and he's really getting into like I learned about how they do power lines, and they sometimes turn them on via helicopter, because that's what this one guy that was in the model trains was did for a job, and then the fact that blah blah blah, and like and I'm like, wow, and I'm taking notes in the car, and I'm walking, and I'm taking all these notes in Evernote. I'm like, this is things, and then I went back, and he came on, and he doesn't say this at the beginning of his show. In fact, his beginning doesn't say anything about welcome to the such and such show where we do blah blah blah. So I look at it; it's a show about model railroads. And I'm waiting to hear about model railroads. And he actually didn't start talking about trains until 10 minutes in. So I'm just like, oh, this is not good. Then you go back and read his description in iTunes, and it's talking about model, trains and the people in their lives. And I'm like, oh, now had he said that at the beginning of the show, it would have reframed exactly what I was listening to, and I wouldn't have been confused. I would have understood what was going on. So that's something that was like my big lesson out of that was, wow, if you don't, and it just goes back to the days of teaching. You always start off a class. Here's what we're going to learn. Here's what's going in it, and that whole 9 yards. So you might want to frame your show a little bit so people aren't confused if they're expecting, like if I call it the, whatever show, and then I start talking about something else. If I don't explain that up front, people are going to be like, wait, why are we talking about this again?
Yeah. It's a delicate balance, though, because you want to get enough information in the front of your show so that if somebody new is coming, they know what to expect.
Right.
But you also have 99.9% of your listeners have heard it before. So you're trying to keep it succinct, or you're trying to keep it, short. And that's that battle that you're always going back and forth against. Dave, we've talked about this. I have a little chit chat that I like to do on the show. On both shows that I do, even for Gallup, we don't start really till about 3 or 4 minutes in to the real info. But there's community information, and there's kind of that our listeners have actually come to expect. And if they don't like it, they can go 30, 30, 30, 30, and then the information starts. So it's a real battle. One person's trash is another person's treasure. And so you don't know who you're hitting and what you're sure of. And like in your case, the expectation, do they really need to say every single time, this is about this is an interview show, or this is about people's lives? I don't know. It's a tough question.
To me, it'd be just, if you can come up with a simple sentence. Welcome to Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live.
Right. Yeah. No, right on. We always say news, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy.
There you go.
That's my line, right?
See, that's where I go. That's different than a 4-minute, Audible ad from Leo. Yeah. I don't expect you to go into the difference of, hey, we talk about this, and then we talk about that, because now you've gone into the realm that drives me nuts on those days that I do read a book. And the first part of the book is what's in the book. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. I bought it. It's in my hand. Quit telling me about what I'm going to read, and let me read the stuff. That drives me.
Or marketing about buying the book. You're like, I've already bought it.
Yes. Because I understand why they do that, because of when you do an Amazon, like, give me a free preview. And so they'll give you like the first half of the first chapter. And I'm like, so I understand. And it's like, here's another review from Big Shot Smarty Pants, who said the book is great. And here's another one that said the book is, I'm like, okay, I have the book. Where does the actual book start? That drives me nuts. Greg says, you guys recently reminded me to tell folks exactly what the podcast is about on the front and back end of the podcast. Yep. I just think if you can boil it down to a quick, 10-second blurb, I don't think it's, they do the same thing with the Tonight Show. Welcome to the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, with your host, and, from Philadelphia, the Roots.
He spends a good minute doing that. So
I will say this drives me nuts that they do that at the top of the show. He does his monologue. He walks over to the desk and he says what's on the show. That drives me nuts. I'm like, I heard it at the beginning. He might hold up their album or something like that, but there's a good couple minutes sometimes that I'm like going, why are we, like, the time you just spent, you could have spent actually talking to those people, because I just heard what's his sidekick's name? Steve?
Redheaded guy. I don't know. Can't remember. Conan.
Yeah. No, that's Conan. No, Jimmy Fallon, and because he still is, I think, one of the head writers at Saturday Night Live. That's going to drive me nuts. But anyway, the guy with glasses. Yeah,
he's pretty funny.
Yeah, he is. When they get going on puns, it's ridiculously bad. So, bad in a good way. So
I added this week, God, and I can't believe it's taken me this long, but I've always been a guy to leave out the rate and review, the subscribe to us, but I'm getting the feeling my community is to a point where I probably need to remind them. So I'm going to add it in over the next, probably 2 months for each of the webcasts. One of the, what's really interesting is I added to, if you join our Facebook group, there's questions you can ask them now that they can answer before they join. And I said, how'd you hear about us? And almost half, maybe a little bit less, but have said, I heard you on the podcast. I heard you say, join the group on the podcast, which is super effective, right? So I started saying, hey, if you're on iTunes, rate and review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and click the bell so you get notified. And if you're listening to us on Spreaker, like us. That's all I say, right?
Nice.
But that quick, and so I've added that to both my Gallup shows and what I'm doing now. Because I haven't been a big fan of rate and review. I'm not. We talked about this in the regular show. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it helps. I haven't been a huge fan of it, but I think it's smart to at some point include that, but not make, gosh, I've heard some podcasters take 3 minutes on all the different ways to subscribe. And I need to get better, faster. I'm really just trying to blow through those things.
Yeah. Greg says in the chat room, commercials on the front end of a podcast, annoying to anyone? Depends on the commercial, I think, but most of the time, if they're 30 seconds or less, I can stomach it, but I'm not. It's always like, this is not how I would start my podcast. What about you, Jim?
Was it the Fish Nerds guy that did the State Farm commercial on Podcasters Roundtable? He was talking about at the end of Podcasters, the most recent Podcasters Roundtable. Was it the Fish Nerds guy or was it the other guy?
No, it was Clay.
So I've heard that commercial on Spreaker. So I was like, and Rob, it's for the Spreaker live show, and Rob is using pre-roll for that. So
I unearthed Weekly Web Tools, which has been dead for, I think, since October, which is interesting because I used to get about 300 downloads an episode, and I put out a new episode after going dead for 6 months, and I got 51 downloads. So I even announced it. I said, this is the last show. I said, I might put out a show later. If you want to stay subscribed, it's not a big deal. And I'm just going to go on when I find something cool basis. And so, but I started using Dynamo, which is Voxnest's new thing. And so far I have about 1,000 downloads and I haven't had a single advertisement. Because I went in and I said, I don't want cigarettes. I don't want this. I don't want that. I basically said, give me technology.
Right.
Because it's a technology show.
And they may not have enough. Yeah. They may not have enough stock to be able to do that. Right.
Yeah. So I need to, I guess I could go back and say, give me everything.
I am excited on Spreaker. I think you can do dynamic ad insertion where you create your own commercials eventually.
That's where they're headed.
Yeah, I think that's coming. And there's some things we want to advertise that I want to dynamically put in on the Gallup stuff that's time sensitive and then be able to change it later. So that would be pretty cool. But back to Greg's question, Greg, no, I'm not I'll tolerate it if I really, really like the content, but I'm not a huge fan of front loaded commercials. Again, 30-30. 30-30, I'm in. Like I do this to Leo all the time. Leo goes in. I love Windows Weekly and I love Leo Laporte. I don't like his commercials. That's my choice. 30-30, 30-30-30. We're back in business. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and he says when they have 2 or 3, I'm like, that's in my book a horrible way to start.
2 more 30s. 30-30. Listen,
well, 30-30. And what I've been doing, because I have Podcast Movement on the School of Podcasting right now as a sponsor, and the reason I did that is like, look, I talk about that anyway. If you want to pay me, by all means. And except now I'm talking about it every week. And I've noticed, I went back because you have to report that this started at the 2-minute and 17-minute mark and it ended at the 3-minute 45. And like, wait a minute, I just did 1.5 minutes. This is supposed to be a 30-second spot. So I'm trying to keep them, again, kind of conversational, hit all the bullet points, get in and get out. Because I'm like, because I've had people say, I love Podcast Movement, I'm going, but I'm kind of getting tired of hearing about them. And I'm like, I'm trying to make it like 30-30. It's like, let's get it in, get it out.
Get past it. Well, but that's advertising, right? I mean,
but yeah, you do have to report. It's not hard. And this is where I really love using Overcast because I have to go in, I have to do what they call an air check. And it's like, what's the name of your show? What address is the episode at? when does the ad start? When does it end? And where's a direct link to where we can hear the episode? Well, what I do is I listen to it on Overcast, and on Overcast, you can get a link with a timestamp. So I'm just making it easier for whoever's on the receiving end of this to click it, and they go right to me doing the ad. So, but it's one of those things that takes, I don't know, 5 minutes, but it's one of those things you're like, got to do the air check. And then when you see the check come in, you're like, oh yeah, I'll do an air check. That's okay. I can handle that.
It's not bad. It's not that bad. Yeah, people can fast forward through those things if they know. If you're consistent with them, then you kind of know you can kind of skip and get through it.
For me, I'm trying to come up with a new ad. You know what I mean? I have bullet points, but I try to have a story or something, just so it's not, hey, here's the 2,000 people, hundreds of vendors, 60 vendors, 100, whatever it is, sessions, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to do something a little different because I know there are people they've heard them all and they're like, oh, here he goes again. So that's just me. And that's where, again, you can make advertising a whole other job for your podcast. If you want to make them entertaining and different, it's like, oh, now I got to come up with something new. So it's like its own little baby podcast in the middle of your show.
Yeah. It's a little bit of work. I think that's the magic in keeping it interesting and making it relevant and figuring out ways to kind of stitch it in without saying, okay, we're going to take a break now. And I'm watching a friend take advertising for the first time on his podcast, and he defaulted to kind of your typical, let's just take a quick break.
Yeah.
And, and I think a quick break means 30.
So, that's it. You're alerting your audience. It's time to take the phone out of your pocket.
Right.
And hit the fast forward button.
I think there's other ways of just blending, you're getting better at this. So just kind of blending it in. So it just kind of becomes part of the podcast. And when you first started doing that, I had to think, is he getting paid to do this?
Yes, I am.
Because you would have talked about podcast movement regardless, I think, in some ways.
Yeah.
It's great that you're getting paid, by the way, for it. But it took me a listening double take. I don't know how you do that. How do you do a listening double take? Where I was like, wait a minute, that was a commercial. And so, right, which I think is what you want your listener to kind of ask the question, like, well, was that part of the show or was that a commercial? Well, you're getting pretty close. If they don't ever ask the question, it's perfect. Like it's perfect.
Well, that's why I always end with, and thank you for sponsoring the School of Podcasting. It's like, everybody know that's like, hey, I'm getting paid for this. Now, again, I wouldn't be talking about them if I didn't,
Do we have to disclose that? That's interesting. If you're on the web and you're making a statement and it was and the equipment was provided for you, or you're being compensated for it, in a blog post, you have to disclose that.
Yeah.
Do you have to disclose it? I've never thought about this. Not never, but do you? Do you have to say this is a paid advertisement or something along those lines?
I'm trying to think of Gimlet, because Gimlet, because they would say it's brought to you by. They're not saying but it's I don't think they spell it out. We're getting paid to say this, but they always do today's show is brought to you by. And then it's always something like Squarespace or
I know why they do it in radio, but do we have to? Like I just did for last week's show for Home Gadget Geeks, we talked about this Morrow data box. They've provided it to me. Actually, I tried to give it back, and they're like, "No, just hold it. Just hold on to it. There'll be actually turned off. There'll be more things coming that we want you to be excited about. So just keep it." Well. I just did a whole show around it. Not a whole show, but I did a big segment of a show around it. And I didn't do any kind of disclosure. And I didn't do it because they asked me to. I did it because it was relevant to what the show was talking about.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to disclose that.
Okay.
But, I know radio, what was hilarious, I don't know if it's radio or just the radio app. But there's a guy named, did I tell you about this already, Jim Rome, trying to listen to Jim Rome on the radio app?
No.
I had my phone, and the Browns had done all this trading in football. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm sure Jim's probably talking about this because they made a ton of trades. And I'm like, I'm not much of a sports guy, but I like Jim Rome. So I fire up the CBS radio app, which is now just called radio.com. And so I fire it up, and I drove easily 2 or 3 miles and sat through like a red light before I actually heard the program. I mean, I just kept going, and I'm like, and it was like, whatever, Dieter in the booger, it's Thursdays at 3. And then it was like, hey, here's a truck ad. And then it was like, Boner in the blah, 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 Saturdays. And then Pharrell. You ever heard of Pharrell? There's a sports guy. I'm like, how is that your real voice? But literally just bumper after bumper. And I'm like, is this the radio or is this something they do just on the app? But it was amazing. Because I was going to the post office to drop off something at a UPS store. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to the store before I actually hear, like, am I going to make it to the store and home? And it was like, then it became like a gag. And I started, like, I lost track at like 6 advertisements. Because I was like, wait, I'm going to start counting. And there was another one and another one. And I was like, if this is what radio's come to, no wonder they're going bankrupt. I couldn't believe it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, no 30, 30 past those. You've got to.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't. Yeah. I had to listen.
Being streamed. Then finally Jim Rome comes on and gives you about 2 minutes worth of material. By the way, did the Browns, did they recruit some high school kids? Is that
no, they might as well have. No, it's funny because one of our ex quarterbacks, because we have like a gaggle of them,
like 18 in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Josh something, McCown, I think, and our running back and one of our receivers now work for the Jets. And we're like, now watch, the Jets are going to take off and have this awesome season
and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because we can't, so
there's something horribly wrong going on in Cleveland there, Dave. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, Greg says, is satellite radio killing terrestrial? No. But podcasting is killing terrestrial. If you saw the last,
killing it, but it's cutting into it for sure.
Yeah, the last Edison research, we are now more popular in the car than satellite radio, and I was like, that's kind of a cool little stat. So
it just makes sense, and I will continue to get the bigger players. iHeartRadio, even though they're going bankrupt, will continue to get those kinds of things in the car, and it'll just make sense. Terrestrial radio just doesn't make sense anymore, except for emergency conditions, like emergency and local and some of those kinds of things. It just doesn't make any sense. Satellite radio, I don't know if it was ever relevant, except for people who traveled long distances where there was
truck
no
drivers.
Yeah. I'm not sure. And I bet I'm pissed off a whole bunch of people by saying that right there, because I'm sure we'll hear from, satellite is the shiz and it was everything and it did well. Okay, for you, but not for anybody else for the most part.
Well, the thing that got me was it was supposed to be ad free, and it's not. I mean, there are some channels, and I do like the fact that they do what I want DJs to do. Like I was listening, I used to have, that's one of the things I go back to about every 5 months. I'll get a stream only version and listen on my computer. And I love the fact that they're like, hey, if you haven't heard, Judas Priest is on tour, but Glenn Tipton is not with them. He's been battling Parkinson's for 4 years. And I was like, I did not know that. So it's news. It's, again, they get to know the niche. And then, so I was like, why don't we hear that on regular radio? But then there's a guy named Eddie Trunk, and he does basically his podcast on satellite radio. So he's doing the stupid ads and the whole 9 yards. So I have to think about that, because sometimes I get them confused. But I just know I hear ads on the radio, on satellite radio. And what I really want to see is what happens when Howard Stern goes off the air, because he's down to about 3 days a week now, and he's not what he used to be. And that's why I usually go back and I'll get a month subscription and I'll listen. I'm like, number one, Howard's like a replay, best of. I'm like, when does he actually like live? And then when he is, he's just not what he used to be, because he's older and he's grown up, and I don't know.
That was such a show.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a showman. It was so good because he was not him. I don't think he's typically that way.
Yeah.
That's a shtick, right? And he was just really good. On demand, Dave, is where it's at. Like, we now have the technology to listen to whatever, whenever. We can binge if we want to. We can keep it in real time if we want to. So whoever wins the on demand game is who. I mean, if satellite radio could deliver podcasts via on demand, game over. That would be awesome.
Well, if I can get all my stations from this thing that's showing up today, I'm going to cut my absolute cable, not the internet, obviously, but I'm going to cut the cable and just use that. That'll save me another $20. And if I want to watch TV, then what do? Hulu's $14. Yeah. And here's one that we talk about obsessing over stuff. Originally, I signed up for $9 a month. and I think it was 9, something like that. But I had to watch commercials, and you cannot skip them. And then a lot of times will watch or listen to TV while I'm doing stuff for Libsyn. And I'm sitting there through commercials, and I'm like, wait a minute. So if I end up watching a fair amount of time on this, how many commercials am I going to watch in a month that would be worth the $4? Like, how much more am I going to get to watch because I'm not watching 4 minutes of commercials every hour? I was like, that's definitely worth the $4. So I upgraded, and then I understand that they have, if I want to, I can get live TV, but I don't. That's where I just like, I don't watch live TV, and I can wait 24 hours to watch This Is Us or Shark Tank or that whole 9 yards. So I'm investigating it. And then somebody else was telling me about Google has Chromecast, and they have a way that if you have a Chromecast that you can stream live TV, and that was like $30 a month. I got tired of paying $100 for stuff I wasn't watching. So I'll have to keep you posted.
And don't be worried about them tracking anything that you're watching and then them serving ads to you that are relevant to the things. Don't fall into that trap. What?
Yeah. So when all of a sudden I get the email from Google, like, here, This Is Us t-shirts are on sale at the NBC store. Yeah.
I just want Cortana or something to pop up and tell me, oh, I just invoked her. I seriously did. Like, hey, you're low on toilet paper. Because that's the important thing. You're down to half a roll, and there are no other rolls in the house. That would be
that's a value.
And then Amazon goes, can we drone you in some emergency toilet paper? Because that's what you need.
That's it. Like, I need it. I need it now.
Yeah.
I've also found on my iPad that when, you know how Chatwing occasionally will refresh, when it does, it kills the chat on an iPad. But do you know anybody with a Apple, whatever they're calling it, the smart speaker from Apple?
Oh, I won't say HomeKit, but the new. No, I don't.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I know. I saw where Rob, who does Today in iOS, had an episode called "The New Apple Thing Is Out," and it didn't sell out. And I was like, oh,
yeah, no, it's pretty expensive at $350. I'm not sure it's the way to go. The Microsoft's offering isn't much better. Amazon is crushing it with their devices. Google Home is just there. People who have it love it, but Google's a new Microsoft when it comes to marketing things. They just kind of throw it out there and hope people will take it. So
hope it goes viral.
Yeah, if they just knew an advertising company, like if Google just knew an advertising company. So yikes. Oh, they should dominate, and they just don't. I think they're worried about some antitrust stuff, so they keep it kind of quiet. But
Oh well.
But when I just said the C word.
Yes.
I just invoked my own, because Microsoft just changed things where all you have to say is the wake word. You don't have to say hey anymore.
Oh.
So now literally anytime I'm talking about it, it's popping up.
See, and it's talk about Sling TV. See, I just mentioned cutting the cable, and I get an email for Sling TV. And I'm like,
what? Yes.
That's freaky.
And they're not listening to you at all.
No.
They got, yeah. And it's not really AI. It's 150,000 people in the Philippines with earbuds on actually listening to your conversation.
That's it.
Yeah,
so
it's ridiculous. Well, but I had the same thing. I was talking about Patriarch Distilleries, which is a distillery here, a brand new distillery, not new, but fairly new here in town. We really like it. And I go onto Facebook, and what's the second ad?
Oh, that's
Patriarch Distilleries.
That's
I wasn't using my phone. I was just talking to my friend.
That's spooky. So.
It is. It's the wizardry that is AI. We're way over. Hey, thanks for making it work this morning. You could have punted. It was going poorly.
And I was like, well, let's fire up the laptop and see if we can get. And from there, it would have been iPad, but I don't think I can run. And I don't know. That would have been the next thing.
HomePod, by the way, was the name of that.
HomePod. There we go.
Thanks, Emily.
So, all right, but
good stuff, man. Have a good weekend.
Yes, thank you, chat room.
Be safe.
We'll see everybody later.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.